Listen, there might be times where I disagree with Medhi Hasan, but in this case, he was 120 billion% right because Piers Morgan is always trying to cover up for Trump and his relation to Epstein. And finally, he gets called to the table, and I love it. We're going to go ahead and check out this video, but first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Coffee City for bringing this to my attention, by the way. Make sure you guys follow my friend. Here we go. All right, so this show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, it already started out with some BS because they had that racist ass senator, Randy Fine. Yeah, not that he's fine. His name is Randy Fine, and he is totally a bigot, xenophobic. All the words that you can think of, he's all of that wrapped in one, and he's a horrible human being, right? But Mehdi starts out by going at him, and then they move over to the Epstein file. So we're going to go ahead and skip the first part and then go straight to where he talks about the Epstein files. And by the way, Coffee City channel is actually Coffee Unfiltered. I'll put the link in the description box too as well. Here we go.
Let's just turn to the Epstein files because it seems to me this is, as I've said a few times recently, this is the biggest political and royal scandal of my lifetime, and seems to be getting worse, not better, as it goes on. It reminds me a bit of Watergate with bells on. Watergate began as a very slow burner, took a couple of years to really explode, and you're seeing the same thing with the Epstein files, and you're seeing a lot of people hoisted by their own petard, by their own lies, with all the documentary evidence coming out showing how they lied. Have you ever seen anything quite like this? And what do you feel about Attorney General Pam Bondi saying, that's it, you've had all the files, even though we know there are many redactions in the ones that have been put out, some of them totally baffling. And we also know there apparently are 3 million more files that they have no intention of releasing.
Yeah, it's without a shadow of a doubt the biggest political scandal of my lifetime. I'm 46 years old. You mentioned Watergate. I mean, Watergate in the US, the Profumo affair in the UK, these look like walk in the parks compared to what we're seeing recently. And the number of powerful people globally have been caught up in this. A United Nations panel of experts this week, Piers, said this could amount to a crime against humanity. Just what we've learned from the redacted files. They talk about it being a global criminal enterprise that is systemically engaged in the trafficking of young girls and women. And yet you have Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, going in front of Congress last year, Piers, and saying there's no evidence Epstein trafficked anyone, right? That's what he said under oath in front of the Senate. You have Pam Bondi, as you say, saying that's it, no more. Her deputy saying nothing else to be seen. We know that Donald Trump's name, thanks to Jamie Raskin, congressman who went and looked in the files unredacted, he says he saw 1 million references in his searches to Donald Trump. According to the New York Times, in the redacted files, we have 38,000 references to Donald Trump, his wife, Mar-a-Lago. So that's 96% of the mentions of Trump are missing from what you and I can see. That's a huge scandal. Richard Nixon was, organizing a burglary at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Donald Trump is accused in these files. I want to be clear, he's a very litigious man. There's no evidence of criminality on Donald Trump's part, but there are accusations from people the FBI interviewed in the files claiming all sorts of things about Donald Trump having allegedly done sex acts with children, assaulted children, threatened children. We have no idea if they're true or not. I have no evidence to say they're true, but shouldn't they?
Well, we do. No, well, hang on. This is why you have to be careful. Well, hang on. This is where you have to be careful because we do. Because in the more extreme cases like that, they've been investigated and they've been ruled out as fantasy stuff or people trying to be malicious or whatever it may be.
Not all of them, Piers.
That's not true. It has not been looked in at all.
Actually, everything in relation to criminality.
I agree with you.
Well, no. Everything in relation to Trump that involved alleged criminality has been ruled out. And the reason I'm comfortable in saying that is I interviewed David Boies yesterday. He was Virginia Giuffre's lawyer, one of the top criminal lawyers in modern American history. He's looked at everything and he says there's nothing criminal against Trump. And I do think it's important to say that. I don't think his motivation, Trump, in trying to shut this down is about
bullshit, and I'm going to tell you why. So that lawyer for Virginia Giuffre, he said that Trump wasn't implicated. He referenced that Virginia never mentioned anything about Trump. here's the thing. If there's supposed to be thousands of victims, then how possibly does he know that every single alleged victim had said Trump had nothing to do with it? And especially we know that's a lie because Trump is listed with allegations of doing multiple different things with different victims. So again, you cannot promise that or say Trump is not implicated at all. You cannot say that. There has never been an actual investigation. So how do we know? And again, even with the lawsuit that was with Katie Johnson, remember the pseudonym Katie Johnson in 2016 that was conveniently dropped right before the election? That never went to court, so it was never looked at. Again, so how can we say that for a fact? He represented all 1,000 victims, so he knows that Trump wasn't implicated. Come on now.
It's about himself. I think it's actually about a lot of people he knows.
Well, I agree with that. And he told Marjorie Taylor Greene, according to MTG, that you're going to hurt my friends, which in itself is a massive scandal. And I think you would agree if he is covering up for rich and powerful friends. We know how many Trump people are in the files in very awkward positions, lying about their relationships from Elon Musk to Howard Lutnick, Mehmet Oz, multiple. That's why Thomas Massie is now calling this the Epstein administration. But just on Trump, I just want to mention a couple of things. I just brought this along just to remind myself. Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than has previously been reported or that we were aware. That's an email from one of his own DOJ lawyers in 2020. Trump lied, Piers, when he said he never went on the plane. He went on the plane 8 times. We know, for example, that Epstein wrote in 2011, Donald Trump spent hours at my house with a victim. He referred to Trump being at his house as the dog that hasn't barked. He said in 2019, Trump knew about the girls. Now, he could be lying, Epstein. He's a horrible convicted sex offender. But the point is, we've not had full investigations. The media has barely touched this, Piers. There's been a lot of coverage of Prince Andrew and Thiel and Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman and all sorts of people. Katie Couric. There hasn't actually been that much coverage of Donald Trump's own relationship with Epstein as much as there should have been. If this was any other president or politician, this would be a huge scandal. And I agree with you on the kind of, we haven't got evidence of criminality, but I just want to show, this is in the Epstein files, right? This is page 21. This is a 21-page FBI PowerPoint presentation. This is the page they have from last summer called Prominent Names. Donald Trump's at the top with 2 allegations in there. Now, I'm not saying those are proven allegations, but the idea that we as a media, that the American public's not even familiar with those allegations, I think we need to be talking much more about what a huge scandal this is and how many lies have been told by the people in power, not just Donald Trump. And I know Bill Clinton is going to have his day to talk about what were his relationships with Epstein as well. Piers, I'll say this, one last point. I no longer can just laugh at people who come up with conspiracy theories anymore. I can't. I used to be very dismissive of conspiracy theories.
No,
but
I agree.
When it comes to this, we have seen the.
Now, I'll be honest. When it comes to like they say like they're impregnating these girls and making them have babies, and then they eat the babies and stuff like that. Yeah, that's extreme. Like I admit, like okay, well that's crazy, right? But again. The reason why the Epstein files was released the way it was is to confuse us. So you have truth in there and you have conspiracies because what it is that, for example, the Jay-Z and Pusha T part, that came from a tip line. That wasn't something that they were actually looking into. So there was a tip line where they were gathering information from, and then there was actual claims that they were looking in from actual witness or victim testimony. So that's why it's so confusing.
Eyes on the cover up.
Do you know what? I said the other day, I would literally now be prepared to believe any conspiracy theory relating to the Epstein scandal because so much of it is actually coming true. Who the hell knows, right? I mean, I just think the idea.
Although you're quick to defend your pal Donald Trump, who was close to him.
No, I'm only quick to defend him about one part of this, which is. There's a lot of stuff in those files that is clearly fantastical, malicious, and was investigated and
but there's a lot of stuff redacted, Piers.
No, I agree. But there's no.
How do we know?
There's been no evidence.
The full extent of this.
Well, it's a perfectly valid point.
Agreed. But there hasn't been a full investigation. I agree with that. Agree with that, Piers.
And I'm with you.
Cash Patel and Pam Bondi shutting it down. Why is the director of the FBI and the Attorney General shutting it down?
Mehdi, you're preaching to the choir. I've been saying the same thing. There should
I love it when we agree.
Be full transparency.
I love it when we agree, Piers.
I always feel a bit disconcerted when we agree. Let's talk about something else. It's interesting because let's assume a scenario here which plays out. I said on my show on Monday, we were talking about the polling for Trump and the midterms coming up pretty soon now, right? We're nearly in March. You've got midterms in November. It is highly likely, the way things are looking, that the Republicans will get a big beating in the midterms unless something extraordinary happens, which it might. But if they do and they lose control of the House, then any president in that position pretty much becomes a lame duck president. And if that happens, it's a free-for-all for what happens next, both amongst his own party and, of course, the Democrats. The Democrats don't really have yet, to me, anyone clearly coming through in the way that Bill Clinton did or Barack Obama did, which is a massive problem for the party. One of their leading lights is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I watched this clip of her. She went down to the Munich conference.
Well, here's the thing. There's nobody in power right now. Like, literally, what do you mean? Like, oh, there's not somebody in the... Trump is the president. He's the one in control and in power. Of course, the Democrats don't have anyone, quote unquote. But again, if he's trying to allude to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries as stepping up to be the leaders, in that case, he's right, because we definitely SOL on that one.
I think to sort of show her global, aspirations and how smart she was and so on, and ended up getting pretty well ridiculed for a few things, but one of which was her explanation when she was asked by a friend of mine, actually, would and should the US commit troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move? And she said this.
Would and should the US actually commit US troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is of course a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point. And we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Now, if Donald Trump had come out with that, you'd have gone, what the fuck is he talking about? That is a load of gibberish word salad nonsense. So in the cause of intellectual honesty, Medhi Hasan, would you say that what we just heard was a load of gibberish word salad nonsense?
No, I think what we heard was not her finest hour in terms of articulating an answer on a very complicated subject. I was awkward watching that. It's obviously not great to and ah for 20 seconds. I wrote a book about public speaking.
But also, too, one thing, she's not necessarily a great foreign policy expert. And that's probably one of the reasons why she probably should not be president. But again, that's not her call to really make, because she's not in that position to do anything. Trump does what he wants. So even if you say, yeah, we should send troops, Trump can override that,
I've addressed these issues and people who do public speaking. It wasn't a great moment for her, but the idea that summed up her presence at Munich is actually what I would question the premise of your entire discussion. You just played a clip from an account. I noticed where you played it from. It's a well-known right-wing MAGA Twitter account. The right are very good, Piers, aided and abetted sometimes by your good self, in pushing narratives about Democratic politicians to brand them.
Why does it matter where it came from?
2000, they did it to... It does, because, for example, she gave fantastic answers on inequality, on Gaza, on authoritarianism. She spoke to a packed crowd in Berlin the next day. She met with the SPD. She met with the far left. No one mentions any of that. Instead, everyone in the US media is talking about this because the right wants you to talk about this. That's my first point, that this is a very manufactured narrative. And number two, it's not at all equivalent to Trump, Piers. Trump could never say even half of what she said about Taiwan. Her answer, actually, at the end, which is we shouldn't get to that point, is actually the right answer. When Trump, I checked, because I knew you were going to ask me about this. I checked before I came on air. Trump was asked about Taiwan a few months ago, and he couldn't answer the question. He said, it's a secret. I can't tell you what my position is. Well, that's much better. In fact, this week, Piers, forget rhetoric. Do you know what Trump said about Taiwan? He told reporters on Monday that he's checking with the Chinese president before he sells arms to Taiwan. That goes against a 42-year long-standing US policy on Taiwan that Ronald Reagan set up, not me, Ronald Reagan set up. So you can go on about AOC's 20-second umming and ahhing, which wasn't great for AOC, I admit. Or we can talk about the fact that Donald Trump has a very bad policy on Taiwan that goes against US traditional national security policy. And we can talk about that Donald Trump's sentences make AOC look like the most eloquent woman in history. What are you talking about? Have you heard Donald Trump rant about shark attacks, about the size of Arnold Palmer's penis, about toilet flushing? AOC's never said anything like that. Donald Trump, hold on, I haven't finished. Donald Trump went to Davos, Piers. Did you play the clip? Did you play the clip in the interest of fairness and intellectual honesty, to quote you, did you play the clip of Donald Trump in Davos calling Greenland Iceland again and again and again? He went to Davos and embarrassed himself, calling it Iceland. And by the way, worse than calling it Iceland, he wants to invade Greenland. No Democrat has ever suggested anything as mad as going to war with Denmark as Donald Trump. So please don't come here and talk about gibberish and intellectual honesty. Your pal is the most deranged person to ever get close to any top office anywhere in the West.
Do you know what? I haven't heard such a...
Listen, Piers Morgan is about to deflect. We already know that. He was not ready for this smoke. This type of smoke, he was not ready for. See, he's used to just having like different podcasters on who just yell and scream at each other. But when he has to do a one-on-one interview and he's confronted, he cannot handle it. And Medhi Hasan was ready.
Strident piece of apologia since Comical Ali in the Iraq War, when he was trying to explain why the Americans...
Everything I said was true, and you can't dispute a word of it. Did you play Donald Trump's clip at Davos? Did you play on this show?
The Americans are not
on this show.
Let me answer.
Did you play a clip of your pal Donald Trump saying Greenland is Iceland? Yes or no?
Medhi, yes, multiple times, and more than that, I interviewed the Prime Minister. Wait a minute. Yes, and more than that, I interviewed the Prime Minister of Greenland as well. Did you?
So what's that got to do with anything? We're
what's
talking
the
about
matter with you?
You have run cover for Donald Trump. Piers, do you agree? Do you agree that Donald Trump is mad, nuts, deranged, and mentally unfit for office? Do you agree with that? Do you agree
Why
with that
do you
or not?
do this? Why do you
agree he's mad?
Why do you just say, Medhi?
I mean, it's a simple question, Piers. People are watching. Do you agree that Donald Trump is mad, deranged,
it's not your show,
and unfit for office? Because those are your words, Piers. Those are your words.
When I come on your show,
your words.
When I come on your show, when I come on,
you call Donald Trump deranged, mad,
time out,
and nuts.
When I know, and occasionally I think he is those things. And as you know, I've said it when I think he is, and when I think he deserves praise, I give him praise. My point is, though, that you're
overall you
blinkered about AOC. No, I think sometimes he's perfectly normal and lucid. Sometimes he does nutty things.
He's so full of shit.
Most of the time. Come on, Piers. This is a man who rants about shark attacks, who talked about Arnold Palmer's penis at a rally, who did an impression of someone doing oral sex on a microphone at a rally. There's been no president like this. I hate George W. Bush, but I would put George Bush 100 times above Donald Trump in terms of intellectual and mental fitness for office. You cannot question any Democrat's intellectual fitness for office when you have supported this man, the most deranged man, your words, deranged, mad, nuts man, in office.
Just to be clear,
this is a man who couldn't find Taiwan on a map because his life depended on it.
Medhi, here's the problem. I'm afraid, listen, you know I like you, I respect you very much. You've built an amazing business with Zeteo. Congratulations. But one of the reasons Donald Trump got reelected is that you guys have got literally Trump derangement syndrome. It plays into his hands. I prefer to be more even-handed with him. I prefer to praise him when he deserves it, and I prefer to whack him when he doesn't. When you're so blindly enraged by everything, including silly jokes he says, you're so deranged about it. Actually, in the end, you managed to achieve the unthinkable. You managed to help.
The problem is that they pacify Trump's bullshit and makes it seem normal. It's not okay to normalize any of this bullshit that Trump does. It's not. It's not normal. Treating that this moment in time that we're living in is normal is the problem. Being quiet about this moment in time is a problem. So being vocal and saying, no, this is not right, you care about your country more than the others care about their country.
Get Trump reelected.
Hold on.
He got reelected with a bigger majority.
Do I get to speak? So hold on. Let's just deal with a couple of things. The reason he got re-elected, I would argue, is the media gave him a pass. People like you, I came on your show on the eve of his election, and you were telling me all sorts of things. Oh, don't call him a Nazi. Don't call him a fascist. Meanwhile, we have masked thugs
He's not a
pulling
Nazi.
American citizens off the street.
He's not a Nazi.
In cold blood. Shooting.
He's not a Nazi.
I was right about his fascism. You were wrong about his fascism. I was right that he would try and stay in office in 2021. You were wrong about that. His people are shooting Americans.
He didn't stay in office in 2021.
Everything that I said would happen in a second term.
He didn't stay in office.
Piers, and you said he was
he's not a Nazi, and he's not a fascist.
Oh my God. Piers, you in January 2021 accused him of trying to stay in office. You said he sent an armed mob to the Capitol. You said he should be removed from office, never be president again. You changed your tune once he got back to the presidency. I get that. That's fine.
No.
I've been right about everything I've said about Trump. And as for being Trump derangement syndrome, it's the very opposite. Even I didn't think he'd be trying to start a war with Denmark. Even I didn't think he'd be shooting Americans in the street 14 months into his presidency. Even I didn't think he'd be this corrupt on this level so openly. So in fact, he's been much worse than those of us who allegedly have TDSs.
I did. I knew that it would be bad. This man was on a revenge tour. If Trump didn't become president, he was going to jail. He had nothing to lose. Well, he had everything to lose. I'm sorry. He had everything to lose. So he had to become president by any means necessary. And once he got in the White House, he was going to wreak vengeance on everyone who came after him. And this is what he's doing now.
Have TDS, Piers. You have Trump denial syndrome. When I say to you, is Trump racist? You say, no, he's not racist, even though he calls Somalis low IQ, Piers. Do you agree that Somali people are low IQ? Is that not the most racist thing?
Just to explain, Mehdi, just to explain.
You're dodging me.
This is not your show.
Do you think Somalis are low IQ, Piers?
This is not your show, Mehdi.
Do you think Somalis are low IQ?
You don't get to interview me for half an hour. It's not your show.
People are worried about your silence.
When I come on your show, when I haven't been silent about any of these things. You should watch my show more.
Trump calls Somalis low IQ. Is that not a Nazi thing to say? Is that you? Okay, I'm not asking you a question.
It's not a Nazi thing to say. No,
I think
it's not a Nazi thing to say.
It is white supremacist rhetoric to call black people garbage and low IQ.
The problem is,
it's amazing that you're defending.
Okay, Mehdi,
amazing.
Let's not talk at the same time. No, here's what I'm defending. When people like you on left keep calling Trump a Nazi or comparing him to Adolf Hitler, that is exactly what I'm talking about Trump derangement syndrome. It is so ridiculous, so offensive, so inaccurate. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis murdered 12 million people, including 6 million Jews in a Holocaust. There is zero comparison to be made.
Then why are they pumping out Nazi propaganda from the DHS Twitter account? Why are they using literal Nazi themes and quoting Nazi books? Do you know that they're doing that? Have you checked that out? Go check it out. I wrote about it. Why are they trying to...
Has he murdered 12 million people?
A man who says, why is... That's not the definition of a Nazi. That means Nick Griffin's not a Nazi because he didn't murder. You know perfectly well, you don't have to be Hitler to have Nazi views. These are Nazi views. When you put someone in front of Congress right now, they're trying to confirm someone to the State Department, Piers, who says that we need to address the Jewish question, that Jews are victims, that white people are being erased. Are those not Nazi views? Are those not far-right views? Are those not views you want to condemn? This is your friend. You say, Donald Trump is my friend. I'm asking you, Donald Trump, your friend, is friends with Epstein.
Mehdi.
And mind you, remember when Tucker Carlson had interviewed Piers Morgan and basically he was like, yeah, you're letting all these immigrants into the country and now they're changing the culture. And then Piers Morgan was like, what's wrong with that? We like, our Indian restaurants and so forth and so forth. So Piers Morgan understands what's wrong with it. He acts obtuse because, again, he's supported by Fox News. He knows what he has to do to keep his job and what propaganda works. I'm not going to say Piers Morgan is a good person because obviously if you're peddling lies and bullshit, you're not a good person, right? But he understands right from wrong. That's what I'm trying to convey.
Donald Trump, your friend, says Somalis are low IQ. I'd like you to condemn that.
Mehdi, I don't have to condemn it because I did condemn it when he said it. My team have just sent me the monologue the day after he said it about the Somalis. Do you want to hear what I said the next day?
Sure. Did you call him a racist?
But just as it's absurd and abhorrent to argue that every British Muslim man is a rapist.
I'll go ahead and stop it right here, you guys. I'll share the link so you guys can watch the whole thing. But I love the way Medhi Hasan basically was playing, chess and not checkers, and was checking him every point that he was trying to make in arguments and deflections and the go-arounds that Piers Morgan likes to do on his show. Because, again, some people might look at this and go like, oh, well, he was trying to overtalk him. No, you have to do that because Piers Morgan will overtalk you, ask you a question, and then ask you another question, and then try to double it with 3 more questions to the one that you were trying to originally answer. He tries to trick people up. And Medhi Hasan was ready for him. So I got to give him his flowers for that. You know, I came at Medhi Hasan on Twitter a few days ago, so now I got to apologize. Well, no, I ain't apologize. Screw that. But what y'all can do is hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and also don't forget about our meetup in Vegas, April 10th through the 12th. I can't wait to see you guys there. Y'all, this was an awesome show. I love y'all. Deuces, we out of here.